So the sun is shining on Roland again, but it's almost done lighting me up, and so I won't be glowing too much longer. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. We're doing a quick test to make sure that we're running live, and looks pretty good. We are live. So officially, we are the Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties on March 26th, near the end of the month. The last Saturday before the end of the month, and it's a special engagement today. We are taking flight again with John Chvatal to talk about his aviation technology outreach on social media. And so we're going to do that, and in a few moments we'll begin. But first, we're going to introduce my co-host who is available today, and that is Karen V. Chin. Say hi, Karen.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Roland. Hi, John. I am so excited today because we're doing our part 2 with our conversation with John today, and we're going to be talking about his social channels and how successful he is with each and every one of them in terms of how he's created them, built them, and finally in terms of the engagement that he's getting with his channels. So I'm excited. I'm out here in San Francisco as always. It's the day before Easter. It's not raining. It's sunny, so it's always a good plus. And we're going to have gorgeous weather out here. So hopefully everyone who's watching is having the same thing in terms of great weather and no rain or snow.
Cool. And I'm here in Southern California, and it's kind of crazy because I almost wish it was overcast so the sun wouldn't be on me like this. But got to do with what we got, you know. So I've got a 1 square foot by 1 square foot, well, that's what a square foot is, I guess, window covered, and the rest of the window's covered except for that 1 square foot. And every day at 10:30, I'm deep in the beaming of light, and so I'm just kind of waiting for it to the sun to shift, and pretty soon it won't be an issue anymore. But thank you very much, people, for showing up. And we've got people coming in. Gary Whalen is a wonder, and so hopefully he's joining us, and a few other people, and lots of people will be watching a replay because it's a sunny day. I hope it's sunny for you, and I hope you're having some fun. So wherever you're tuning in from, thank you for coming to Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. And shortly we will also have Molly Youngblood Geiger joining us too, because she's traveling right now, but she's rushing to her camera. So she'll be with us momentarily. But Karen, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest today?
Oh, great. So last week, as we had John Chvatal. He is the founder of Gazing Skyward TV Media. And we're going to continue our conversation today about, last week we mainly focused on the world of Google in terms of how successful he is with literally launching his brand on Google using Google Plus, YouTube a little bit, and also within Google Plus collections and building his community within Google Plus with his Gazing Skyward TV Media. And today we're going to be now talking about what he's doing just on his social channels in terms of increasing his reach and broadening his horizons. And so we would love to talk today, John, about how you go about with starting off with Google Plus and your other channels of what you do to build that audience.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad to be back for round 2. I'm a social media strategist and photographer, and I'm the founder of Gazing Skyward TV, Aviation lifestyle and legacy brand.
And so, as we were talking about last week, we delved really heavily into Google and Google Plus. Do you want to share, as we were talking in the green room today, about what you do with Google Plus and how that is basically kind of like if you kind of had to visualize your pyramid of how you build that foundation, Google Plus is literally your foundation of what you do in terms of spreading your message and your brand.
Most people would would consider their website their foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Up until this point, I've been using Google Plus very much in a very similar way to
Mm-hmm.
that. And everything that I publish on social media, for the most part, comes directly from the Google Plus page.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a service called Friends Plus Me to send those posts to other social networks.
So it's friendly just for the audience. It's like a scheduler, right? So it's like a schedule management tool, similar to like either like a Buffer or like a Hootsuite.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
The big difference is that you can share to Google Plus communities and
Mm-hmm.
collections. It's really the only tool that allows you to have that much flexibility.
Okay. So how do you use that tool, Friends Plus Me, with Google Plus and with your other channels, and in terms of also what platforms are you using besides Google Plus?
I At this point I'm using Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, and Pinterest
Okay.
for my social media efforts, and um, everything that I post to Google Plus goes out in a tweet on Twitter and out on Tumblr. Um, Except the only exception I have is I share aviation photos from other photographers, and so I make sure I keep that on the platform and not take credit for any photos.
So for our audience, just to make understand, so when you say you share, do you share the same exact content on the other channels, or do you kind of tailor your posts? Because I know there are limitations in terms of, character limit, for example, like on Twitter. So how do you go about doing this?
On Tumblr, for example, I would say Tumblr is the closest to Google Plus as far as
Hmm.
how things are formatted and everything.
Hmm.
So it goes up exactly. It has its own unique style, but it's
Hmm.
basically the same text and photo and links and everything that go out on Tumblr. And Friends Plus Me takes care of that and does it in a beautiful fashion. As far as Twitter, uh, because my posts are kind of like my website,
Hmm.
there's two different options. One option is to post a link to the article that you share on your Google Plus page, and the top, I think it's like a line or two of text. Uh, that's one option. The other option is to share the first line or two of text and a link
Hmm.
back to the post. And I
Hmm.
choose the latter because I use it kind of like Google Plus is kind of like my website.
So let me ask you, in terms of the platforms that you've chosen, is there any reason why you're in particular that you went for these? I mean, there's just so many different social channels now to use, like, Snapchat and Periscope
Mhm.
and others. I mean, what drawed you into using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and Tumblr?
As far as Tumblr and Twitter,
Hmm.
they're both indexable uh, by Google. Although Twitter, Google can't index everything because it's just too big of a volume. But Tumblr, I checked, and majority of my Tumblr posts are indexed. So
Hmm.
that's a top priority for me. That's why I like Google Plus.
Hmm.
And Facebook, it is not indexed, but that's where a lot of aviation people hang out.
Hmm.
Um, is in a more casual environment.
Hmm.
That's why I feel I need to still be there, even though I prefer the Google Plus platform.
Hmm.
And then Pinterest, as I get to a point where I'm going to be opening up my photography store to start selling photography, I see Pinterest as a great place to sell my prints on.
Hmm.
And Instagram is for me it's relatively enjoyable for me just to scroll through some great photos and be inspired.
Mhm. Mhm.
And um, so I would say for photography that's my favorite site, but Google Plus is certainly the second one when it comes to photos
So do you
and the
find,
community.
yeah, so do you find with the photos, I mean, photography in itself, of course, is very visual, right? It's
Hmm.
images, but do you find that you're drawing your audience from other professional photographers like yourself taking these who take these types of photos? I mean, are you? I mean, you got the folks that enjoy the photos in terms of someone like me who is not, a photographer but just likes the imagery,
Hmm.
versus the actual professional photographers. You finding that you're building a network within that group.
Yeah, I would say so. I definitely am mutually following several photographers that I'm not connected to anywhere else
Mm-hmm.
that are in the same line of work, which is primarily aviation photography.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Plus, I participate in a photography group, a membership group, and they run weekly Instagram challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I've been busy the past few months, so I haven't participated as much as I usually do, but
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that aspect as well.
Mm-hmm. So do you find that with your audience that you're growing, you're kind of having subsets of audiences where you have, as I said before, folks like myself who look at the photos and enjoy the photos, and then you have like your professional photography group, and then also then another group of folks who you're tracking or looking at in terms of hopefully one day doing business with.
I really have not. To me, it's at this point, it's all about engagement and
Okay.
building a following. It's a little less about um, uh,
Networking.
building a relationship
Yeah.
specifically for selling to.
Hmm.
Although that would come in the future, so what I'm doing now will serve for that. But that's not my current goal, but that's kind of like a long-term goal.
Okay. So do you find that when you're building your audiences, are you finding that you have, I think we talked about different audiences for each of your social channels, or are they kind of the same? I mean, how would you define each of your different channels?
Hmm. Um, well, I can go back and mention that about a month ago or so, I took a poll on Google Plus and asked how many of you are on Instagram? And surprisingly, I think it was about 46% responded.
Wow.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are on Instagram as well. And over the past, the weeks after,
Mm-hmm.
I grew about 50 to 60 followers, which is about a quarter of my current following that I have now. So it
So
definitely helped to
So,
cross.
so yeah, so it sounds like a good strategy for our audience is to poll or survey, their individual channels to see if there are audiences on other channels, and so you can, see if you can, as you said, that cross pollination. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like an easy way to pick up more followers on your other channels
Mm-hmm.
just by a chance of doing that. I mean, it's kind of like I imagine, when you physically go into a store, into a brick and mortar, where you have that sign by the cash register that we're on these social channels. You got the different icons, Twitter, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. But what you did was more, of course, you're just posting it on one social channel, mentioning I'm on these others. Where are you at? Are you
Mm-hmm.
guys on these channels too? So it sounds like a really good idea just to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I feel that poll really helped to engage people
Mm-hmm.
as well. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it may seem like, oh, this isn't worth it, but I think the audience as well uh, actually enjoys being
Mm-hmm.
polled
Yeah,
and
because you
doing
feel
something interactive.
because you feel kind of like, well, maybe you're selling too much of yourself, but in actuality, you're just just getting your message across, and
Mm-hmm.
in also the audience, for those who did follow or circled you back or liked or heart or however you want to call it on your other channels, that said, hey, I didn't know he was on these, I should also follow him on this other channel. So it's actually kind of a win-win for both, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to further expand on that,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the evening of the 23rd, on my personal photography collection,
Mm-hmm.
which is featured and has about 40,000 followers on there, I suggested that they check out the Great Aviation Photography Collection,
Mm-hmm.
which is where I share other photographers' photos
Mm-hmm.
to kind of share the love. And that one's not being featured and has far fewer followers. And so over the past couple of days, I've moved over like 330 people
Mm-hmm.
over to that collection, whereas I usually get about 10 new followers a day on that collection.
So you're
So,
just kind of prodding along, it sounds like. Just kind
Yeah.
of moving along and
Mm-hmm.
finding ways of just increasing that audience as much
Mm-hmm.
as you can.
so let me interrupt you folks for a moment here,
Mm-hmm.
and we are going to say hello to Molly Youngblood Geiger, who has been traveling, but we got her to land on our runway, and here she is with us now. Hi, Molly. How you doing?
Hey, Roland, Karen, John. I apologize for being late. I just had something come up and I got caught in some traffic, but I am here now and I'm happy to hear about what Karen and John have been talking about. Sounds very interesting.
Yes, and I wanted to interject in this case. We've been talking about engagement and various things surrounding John's platform and his structure and his campaign and how he does it. And in general, things keep pointing back to Google Plus. So my question to everybody, John included, is let's discuss just for a minute or two the nature of Google Plus versus the nature of all other platforms. Now, my premise is that Google Plus has something unique happening, and the concept of engagement is defined by Google Plus, and nowhere else is it as predominant. First of all, it's because of the concept of the Google
Mm-hmm.
Hangouts, but it's the nature of the people who have gathered in Google Plus. Now, there's a lot of people who have signed up for Google Plus and never are here, so I'm not talking about them, but I'm talking about the people who are here to engage and how open they are to engagement, how very sharing and giving the people are to build a community based on that concept and the spirit of what I just said. Now, nowhere else, especially Facebook, are people as concerned with helping others. So just briefly, let's talk about who agrees or who disagrees, or what are your comments to add to this?
I agree with what you're saying, especially in relation to people wanting to help other people, especially for people on Google Plus. I would even go a step above and beyond and say that people who are out helping other people succeed online, they are really helping out business owners. And in terms of Google Plus, I think one thing to be made aware of is it's related to the world's largest search engine, Google. So I think right there is one of the main benefits of Google Plus is in lieu of Facebook and Twitter and those other social media sites, they're not really related to a search engine. So for all intents and purposes, if you're posting regularly on Google Plus, then there's a good chance that your content's going to get indexed. If somebody does a search for your product or your service, then either your post or your community or your collection, one of those things that you're doing on Google Plus is going to come up with search results.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
think, yeah. I mean, I
go
think
ahead.
that if you're following an individual, like you're following John, for example, and you look up John's name or you look up John's Gazing Skyward TV on Google, when you do a search, you'll find his latest post up and showing, and his little avatar's face showing up that you would not necessarily see, like for example, on Facebook, unless you're within the Facebook platform. So,
Agreed.
I mean, you've got a much bigger reach by being on Google, Google Plus, YouTube than anywhere else, because everything is so intertwined and interconnected. I
And
mean,
part of that is interconnectivity with the hashtags, which I want to come back around and ask John about a few things
mhm,
too. But the hashtag concept, I mean, I just caught on to this last year, But the whole thing with hashtags is it's able to focus the subject matter on something that does multiple things. You could hand somebody a hashtag and bring up everything you've done because it is indeed, as Molly says, indexable content. The same efforts in Facebook are
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant to search engines. They are irrelevant to search engines. Well, with a very, very minor a bit of social media influence. But when you can search the things and have them pop up in search just because of the hashtag and just because of the relevance and the ownership of the Google being interlocked with Google Plus, being interlocked with YouTube, there's a power force there that is not prevalent anywhere else. It's like I beat my head against the wall, or I would if I could reach it, because people don't seem to get that. They say, "Oh, we got to get in YouTube. We gotta get in YouTube, yes, but then we got to go to Facebook and we got to post some ads." And that whole strategy just completely torques me out. Okay, I'll get off my pedestal and hand the show back to you, Karen. So you can
Yeah.
take.
So I was gonna say, so John, I mean, for you, I mean, as we were talking about again about the engagement and then you're picking out your platforms, and how do you see the individual platforms that you use, I mean, differently in terms of how you get your message across?
Hmm.
And then also in terms of just your audiences, do you find that you have different audiences with your platforms a little bit, even though you're maybe using the same imagery, but the audiences are just a little bit different in terms of the response?
Yeah, like for example, Instagram, that's primarily hearting the photos rather than comments. I would say 90 to 95% of the time it's hearting rather than commenting.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, Tumblr at this point has been super easy to manage. Uh, there's I get very few comments or messages. It's
Mm-hmm.
mostly people coming in and favoriting or hearting and reblogging
Mm-hmm.
uh, the uh, the the posts.
Mm-hmm.
And Twitter, I try and keep up on the conversations on a regular basis, respond to at mentions. I consider Twitter kind of be my second Google Plus. Um, I'm more reactionary there rather than proactive.
So
Uh,
you find that with Twitter, I know for a lot of folks, you either have a love-hate relationship with Twitter. You find that Twitter for what you're doing, it works for you?
yeah, I'm decently happy with the results, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not that I'm not really putting a proactive approach on it
Mm-hmm.
because I want to focus on Google Plus. So if I spent more time, I could probably make a lot more headway there than
Mm.
I am now.
But do you find that with your Twitter audience, I mean, I think that one of the reasons why, you have to have a lot of dedication with Twitter to get that following going. But do you find with your Twitter audience itself, do they respond to you in terms of when you have late breaking news or anything the reasons why you use Twitter is to get that message out quickly?
You could almost say that my aviation history posts, that seems to be where I get the most activity.
Okay.
And then secondarily would be the articles that I share.
Okay.
And you could almost say that the aviation history posts, because it's on this day, it's kind of like a news item because it's kind
It's
of a
yeah, it's newsworthy, right? So
yeah
you find that people kind of respond to it more so because of the way that Twitter works,
yeah.
in that sense. And
Mhm.
do you find that with your Twitter audience, do you find that they themselves are retweeting your stuff proactively, or they're just more kind of like liking it but not really
Mhm.
doing much with it?
Like for example, there's one or two tweet bots for
Mm-hmm.
aviation,
Mm-hmm.
and I've gotten it where I would say one out of every three tweets that I do,
Mm-hmm.
they wind up picking it up, and then I get a little more traction beyond that with retweets and stuff like that. But I do have other people that will retweet directly also
Okay.
and comment and all that. So I make sure to go back and thank them for retweeting, and
Mm-hmm.
if I can think of something to add to the conversation, I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say it's more reactive than proactive.
And we were talking in the green room about the differences. I mean, for imagery, back to it. I know with your stuff, it's just so gorgeous to look at and so beautiful, especially with the planes that you take yourself. Do you find that there's similarities with Google Plus collections, Pinterest, and Instagram? Do you see similarities, or do you think that they're just three different platforms?
I definitely see a lot of similarities with Pinterest and Google Plus in how they're
Mm-hmm.
set up.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's like Pinterest is peddling uh, items to sell or to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Google Plus is promoting content that for learning more.
Back to the education, right? I mean, that's kind of
Yeah,
what Google mantra is about: sharing and educating.
yeah, it's more well-rounded.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Pinterest for me is more or less imagery.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had, my photography store opened up, it'd be a way to sell prints.
Mm-hmm. Do you
Um,
find that for your Pinterest, I mean, I have some suggestions, what I do with my Pinterest accounts, because I find that I'm having a lot more engagement and activity lately for some reason, with Pinterest, and that I'm surprised because a lot of the stuff that I've pinned on Pinterest, even to this day, maybe 2, 3 years ago, I'm still getting, people are still repinning them, which is I find fascinating. Are you finding the same thing?
um, I don't repin a lot. I haven't
Hmm.
repinned anything yet. I'm just posting
Okay.
the images directly from Google Plus. And I do when I do an image post on Google Plus, I have pin it later,
Hmm.
right on the Google Plus post, so that
Hmm.
people can go there and pin it if they want.
Hmm.
As far as getting activity on older pins, I see that all the time on Google Plus. I see people scrolling back through some of my collections and commenting, and so to me it's the closest thing to evergreen. People going back and reviewing things
Hmm.
over a longer period of time. Uh, that's
So
another reason why I like Google Plus.
yeah, but I mean, back with Pinterest, do you find, I mean, how do you kind of, what are ways that you're doing to actually increase that audience for your boards on Pinterest?
Like I said, I primarily pin it for later on
Okay.
Google Plus, but I haven't spent a whole lot of time on Pinterest.
Okay.
Um,
Because
So
yeah, go ahead.
I have a comment. When it comes to commenting in general, John, do you engage in? I think that your field is so narrow that you're probably the one and only, other than commenting on the Smithsonian Institute connection. But I mean, you're probably out there as the #1 resource right now, posting what you do. But is there any way you would engage elsewhere, like in other people's collections or in other places, and comment on theirs as an
Hmm.
initiation, not just a response to what you're posting, but
mhm.
what they're posting and trying to incorporate interest in other people's campaigns? Does that help you at all?
You know, it's gotten to the point where I get so many notifications per day that it's hard to break away and engage on other people's content. I just make sure to come back and engage uh, with everyone that comments.
Hmm.
So you
You know,
basically got your expended time narrowed down to just keeping up with your output, basically.
yeah, and it used to be where I would go all over the place and comment and share and all that. But now that I've grown to be so big, people come to me rather than me going to them.
Do you find though that when you do comment on someone else's post, no matter what the platform you're on, do you find that when you do that, sometimes because of your largeness now and your reach, they feel like, ooh, you've commented back, and you could tell kind of the excitement from their posts, like, thank you. Because I find that I get that a lot now too, where I'm just I'm pretty large in terms of when I actually comment on somebody else's, they get kind of excited, which I think is kind of funny because I don't think of myself that way, but they get like, oh, thank you so much, and you're just, some of the comments are, thank you so much for commenting. It means a lot. I mean, in so many words, but which I find just so fascinating because I really like whatever, when I do make a comment, there's a reason why I do that. But do you find the kind of the same thing?
Yeah, I do, and I feel the exact same way. I feel like I'm just an average person that
Yeah.
happens to have a large social media following,
Yeah.
and I do, when people comment on some of my stuff, and if they do it on a regular basis, and if I happen to see them reshare it into their collection,
Uh-huh.
and they leave a comment, so it pops up, with the actual post instead of just a notification that someone shared.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I will comment on it to kind of further the relationship. So it's pretty much where people have to engage with me first.
Yeah, because I know
As things move along, then I'll engage with them.
because I know Loanne had that comment in last week's event thread about how she was asking, for our opinions in terms of how to build engagement and how do we interact with folks. And, I sat there and thought about it, where it's like if someone actively reshares one of my posts into a collection or just reshares it to their audience, I go out and actually plus one it and just say thank you so much for resharing, because to me it's like, I find that if I find good content that I think is good and someone says the same thing by basically resharing it to their audience, I go and do the common courtesy of thanking them and saying something about it to extend, and they themselves, it's kind of, as you said, it builds on that relationship. And I find that once you do that, then that person comes back to your page or your profile and continually looks for other things, and then you kind of building, and that relationship grows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to add that it's grown to be it's grown to be big enough where I cannot go to the individual person's page or profile, but I do leave it in the comments below of the post because it's like a whole bunch of people are getting notifications that I mention them, so they're mutually getting recognition. So I see that as valuable as well, even though it's a shortcut for me to save a few minutes. And also, when someone shares a collection of mine, that's when I go over and try and find it on their profile or page. That's when I do that.
That's you do that. So Molly, I think you want something to add?
Yeah, actually, a few points. First, going back to your point about commenting on somebody else's post, I'm a big fan of that. I do that a lot, especially in the Google Partners community, the Google Small Business community. I think it's important, no matter what your stature is. And, we're all on this journey, and as we learn more about ourselves and marketing ourselves, we do find that our brand grows, and people learn about us, they know about us, and we turn into this thought leader on whatever industry that you're in. But I think it's important to remember that no matter how important and how big you grow as a person or as a business, you have to remember at one point you started off with nothing, and you don't want to forget those people that are out there, maybe they're entrepreneurs or they're just now getting started out, that well, that used to be me. 3.5 years ago, before I started doing all the social media marketing, I was just a website designer in Jacksonville, Florida. And it was from posting on social media regularly and building my brand that people have come to trust me on certain subjects like technology, website design, SEO, that type of thing. But I think and this is a story. A while back, Ben Fisher, I believe you had Ben Fisher on your show, Roland.
Yes.
And he was sharing a story about a client had called him. And this client said, "Is this the actual real Ben Fisher, or the famous Ben Fisher?" And he just kind of chuckled. He goes, "What do you mean by famous Ben Fisher? I'm just me." And he goes, "Oh no, you're famous. We know all about you. We've been following you for such a long time." And I took from that when you're able to build yourself to that stature where people think you're famous, then you've really accomplished something with social media. And I, just for me personally, a couple months back, I had somebody contact me from the Google Partners community. I've been talking with her for about a year or so now, and she called me and she goes, "Am I talking to the famous Molly Youngblood Geiger?" And I just kind of laughed at her. I said, "No, this is just Molly. I'm just, doing my thing over here." But I was really surprised that somebody would think that. And she goes, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm not famous or anything. I'm just doing my thing." She goes, "Oh no, we've been following you. We know a lot of people have been following you for a long time." So what I'm getting at is like what John has experienced and Karen, you've experienced it, is that when you really dedicate yourself to marketing your brand or your business, or yourself for that matter, and this is something else I tell business owners, put a face to your business. Sometimes people would be more happy to interact with Karen versus Karen's company, or John versus his company, than to be interacting with a brand, so to speak. So I think if you kind of keep that in the background, that because I've had several opportunities to market, they might use the Design Right For You, but I'm thinking, well, nobody really knows who Design Right For You is, but they know who Molly is. So I'm thinking maybe it might be a better strategy to interact with me as a person versus my business. So that's just some tips I have.
And I wanted to mention that I started out with Gazing Skyward TV, and I really didn't publish for the first year to my profile very much. So I did it backwards. So actually, my personal name is not as well known, although I do comment on a regular basis on Gazing Skyward TV. So people would have to look at my profile in order to find out, oh, he's a founder. So, it's kind of backwards for me.
Well, but you gotta take into consideration your name is John and Molly is Molly. There's only one Molly. I don't even think there's any other Mollys. Just like I'm the only Roland practically. I actually have one other person in my 400 or 500 contacts with a first name of Roland, so I'm pretty rare too. But that works for me, I guess. But anyway, I want to display this question, and you might be able to address this, John. This is from WeWake. Some time ago, someone famous said, okay, like, we'll have to redefine the word for us.
But famous means?
Yeah, but anyway, the statement by WeWake is number 1, use Facebook for personal. Number 2, Twitter to create impression. Number 3, LinkedIn to pimp yourself. Okay, that's another discussion completely. and 4, Google Plus to talk about passion and so on. Do you agree, John?
I agree 100%.
I'm just going to guess that wouldn't happen to be Guy Kawasaki who said that. Maybe. I'm just curious if that's who it is.
Yeah, and we have no problem dropping names in this arena. Let me see if I can take that off. We have no problem dropping names and talking about people because that's what this show is all about. We do have a couple other comments from John. I mean,
one more comment though, Roland. So we also asked John that he's not using Pinterest, but now after us talking about Pinterest today, do you think he should be using Pinterest? I think you should be using Pinterest, Vivek, because of the content that you have, and that you can easily create the same boards that I'm assuming you're using for collections. You could easily do for Pinterest.
And also Pinterest, Friends Plus Me works with Pinterest as well. So I haven't personally used it because I have a smaller plan, and I am only posting there once a week so far for Pinterest, so it wouldn't be worth my time.
Yeah, but I think, but I think for Vivek, I know a lot of your stuff that you do post is lifestyle, and there are a lot of folks out there who pin lifestyle type posts for pinning for later in their boards, and I would think that yours would easily fit into those categories. So to me it makes sense that if you're using that same content and you're posting it on different channels, just one extra channel to do. And Pinterest in itself has its own search engine that I think is what is it #3 search engine in the world. I mean, there's Google, there's YouTube, and I think is it Pinterest and then Facebook between those two are like 3 and 4 in terms of
I think
what
it's
people go
Facebook.
what people go to when they look up for a particular topic. You know, you search through Pinterest and you can easily find those things that interest you. You know, besides the usual things that are more, I think, female related. But there's a lot of men who actually use Pinterest now too.
So just briefly as a sidestep, Michael Thomas brings up an interesting thing. He goes, I found Meerkat and Periscope through Twitter, but they are all accessible through G+. I'm not exactly sure what that means. And also says, YouTube aligns more with Periscope than I knew before. Now, these are not subjects that we will encroach upon today, but it's interesting that Meerkat and Periscope will ever be a part of the discussion on Google+. I'm open to it, but I don't hear people talking about it, except for on the side. And the focus of what is potentially something that I could use for my own campaign is way aside from Meerkat and Periscope. They just don't help me at all. And so what I would like to do is conduct a conversation on the side from our show on Saturdays and see if we can develop any kind of significance for Meerkat and Periscope, and I'd be glad to cover it. But anyway, you bring up a good point, Michael, and if you're engaged in it, there's got to be a value. So maybe we can talk about it sometime. But anyway, let's come back around to John Chvatal and his aviation project here. One of the things that I didn't want to let go before you leave us today, or before the show ends, that is I was very interested in what we were talking about the other day when we were discussing hashtag leverage, because and you will have to redirect me and show me where this was, but in some outreach, one of your secondary outreaches, you said that you implemented a second hashtag and doubled your engagement. Do you remember the conversation on that?
Yeah, yeah.
So
That was
tell
on
us about that.
that was on Twitter, and because I don't have the time to do a custom tweet, um, I use Friends Plus Me to reroute route the posts. And recently, they added the ability to pull in the first hashtag for every Google Plus post. And so when that happened, I doubled the engagement and impressions just by enabling that on Friends Plus Me.
I'd just like to quickly interject that Chris Messina is the developer who created the hashtag, and he created it for the Google Plus area, and the intent of the hashtag was to collect similar posts. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that it was actually developed with an intent behind it to collect posts that had that hashtag and put them all together.
So was it mainly a collection for the people who wanting to categorize the things that they were grouping together for their own use and not as an advertising tool? Because I find it very useful to tell people, just search this hashtag and you can find me, or this type of thing.
Exactly, exactly. I attended a hangout, oh gosh, probably almost 2 years ago, where Chris Messina was on the actual hangout, and the question was asked, why did you create the hashtag? And the answer was that he wanted the people to have a tool to where they would be able to categorize information.
And then, John, for you, I mean, I know you're a heavy user of hashtags on Instagram. And I mean, I know that using a hashtag on Instagram, that's how people find things. Do you want to kind of share your kind of strategies on using hashtags on Instagram?
I usually pick somewhere between a half dozen and a dozen hashtags. I use a couple of hashtags that describes the particular subject, and then I use some general hashtags. And as I've grown my following there, I've slowly been able to get on the featured 9 on some of the lesser known hashtags, which has actually helped to grow my following a little bit more rapidly there. I've seen that simultaneously happen.
So do you find that using the hashtags help you in a way also too that something that you post today, maybe in 3 or 4 months from now, that whoever's searching for that particular hashtag, they'll find that old Instagram post and will heart that or comment?
I rarely see that. I get the feeling that when someone does go back to an older post,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they saw a more recent one and they visited my Instagram account and scrolled down and hearted it. Because a lot of the hashtags that I post on are rapid fire,
Yeah.
and it rapidly disappears.
It's funny for me on mine, when I post anything that's related to Google
Mm-hmm.
or AdWords, I get people to, or especially companies, and some of them are actually recruiters, so maybe that's a whole other subject that we could talk about. But I find that they are hearting my stuff like 6 months ago, and then they start to follow me. So I'm finding that if you use the hashtags, people will find you
I'm
and search for you, and for some reason, wherever their interests lie. But that's what I'm
I
finding.
would I would actually add to that. Hashtags are great if you're going to do, say, a promotion,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to do a challenge, or you're going to talk about a certain product or a certain service that you might offer. So if you know that you have like an upcoming sale, or maybe you're going to be doing a video promotion, or maybe there's a holiday coming up, these are all opportunities to use hashtags so that whenever you go back and search for those hashtags, like say you're doing a challenge, maybe you're trying to get people to optimize their vehicle if you sell cars, or if you sell consulting services. If you use a hashtag when you do promotions for that particular service or product, when you go back and you search, well, who else is using these hashtags, that actually is a potential way to go find additional clients and customers.
Yeah, I mean, I also find that hashtags in general, it also, if you have a hashtag that you've created for yourself and that no one else has, it's basically your own brand, and it's a form of advertising. I mean, when you think about it, that's what you see, like the big brands, they had come up with as Molly was mentioning, a promotion of the season, or their brand in terms of advertising for their line of clothing, they use that same hashtag. And if it catches on, it's free advertisement for them when you think about it, because companies are, you're either looking for that hashtag or you see it and it just kind of sticks in your mind. For example, I see a lot now, for example, Gap Love, which is the Gap company clothing, and people use that hashtag, and it varies. It doesn't necessarily mean a particular men versus women versus kids, but they use that hashtag for all of their stuff, and so their love for Gap, it just, to me, there's a connection to that. Roland, Vivek also has another comment. You want to put that up?
I like to also add, I think I'm having a similar experience to you, Karen,
Mm-hmm.
only on Twitter.
Okay.
I'll watch a video on something related to social media, and I'll put a hashtag social media, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'll check back an hour later, and there's a half dozen likes or hearts and a couple of new follows, a couple of people added me to a list,
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like they're automating it. They're looking for business, like Molly mentioned. I think it might be more the hashtags you're using. If I did the same thing as you, I'd probably get the same result.
Yeah, I
Just
think,
with
I mean, yeah,
hashtags.
yeah, it's different hashtags, but I find that just certain hashtags, if you can find that hashtag that's related to your business, your industry, your
Mm-hmm.
what you're promoting, I mean, it does wonders by getting that message across, more so than if you just post it and didn't put a hashtag. It will just probably get lost in the sea of other, millions of people who post a day. But if you can hit it just right, I think the hashtag itself, I mean, it's just a way of marketing that you don't, I mean, something that is completely, that was not foreseen, as Molly was mentioning, why a hashtag was created, has now turned into now an advertising marketing message of getting that message across. and increasing that reach more so than any other way of doing it now socially.
Right, and you have to think in terms of organization. I mean, there's how many different social networks out there, and you can use hashtags on every single one of them. So that was the intent, again, was for organization. Because, I mean, imagine if you have one specific hashtag you're using, and you're having to go to each social network to go see, well, who is using my hashtag. That could be a pretty enormous task. So I think the idea behind creating a hashtag was a good one. I know Chris had mentioned he was actually at the time, and again, this is a couple years ago, he was a little disappointed with Google Plus, but I think Google Plus has really made big strides in the last couple of years in terms of, it was a little rocky there. We had some, things that were decommissioned, but I think Google did that on purpose because they wanted Google Plus to be Google Plus, a social network. And I think in terms of going back and using hashtags, I think it's a great way to help market a business or a person. Like I said, you may want to put a name to a name or face to your business, and make sure in certain events like Super Bowl Sunday, we've got spring break is going on right now. We've got different opportunities to use that hashtag and really get organized with the posts that we're posting on social media.
Mm-hmm. So, Roland, you want to put that post up? Roland, you're muted too.
I saw the question Vivek had. His question.
There it goes. So you want to go, Roland?
Yeah, thank you, Molly, and thank you, Karen. What exactly is meant by creating a hashtag? Well, a hashtag, of course, is the relevant terminology condensed down as small as you can get that will identify your subject or your ID or who you are or your subject or whatever. And we use SMM as MARTIES as Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties, abbreviated, and we can be found on that. And we can also be found on another hashtag, Marketing Smarties, which I also secured, and I secured that by going to the registration that I left in the comment stream, and I can show it also live here.
Yeah, there's also Vivek. I think there's a Twitter. Am I saying it right? Yeah, that's it right there, Roland. That's the one that you register for Twitter for the hashtags. And it's free. There's no cost to register.
Exactly, it's free. And I think for a business owner, that's one of the key points is trying to keep costs down. And if there's tools out there that are free, why not use them?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think for you, John, was AV Geek, is that one that you registered for yourself, or is that something that you found and you're using?
That's what I'm piggybacking off of.
Okay, so you have not created your own brand identity of a hashtag for yourself?
Not yet. Not really.
Yeah.
So let's discuss that briefly. I mean, one of the things that are best for John, I would think that his Gazing Skyward or Gazing Skyward TV would be a no-brainer. But what else will we focus on for the subject of aviation for John? Anybody? Is there a good...
I think in terms of what John's trying to do, I think it's really about your online reputation. And certainly all of the tools that we've talked about today can help with that. Google+, YouTube, using hashtags, posting regularly. And I would even say above and beyond, posting regularly to all your social networks using social media automation. I found an app, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, Buffer app. I've been using it for quite some time now, and I love it because it gives me the ability to go and come up with different posts. So I'm writing the post, I'm sharing interesting articles that I might find online, or pictures or music or whatever I'm interested in sharing. But what I really like about it is it gives me the flexibility of knowing, hey, my post is going to go out.
Mm-hmm.
Hope she has a freeze.
Yeah, she has a freeze.
Molly, this is really important stuff. You had a freeze. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's
sorry
okay.
about that.
It is really important. I think the Buffer app is a good one, and there are other things that really kind of like wipe out the Hootsuite concept of today. And what do you, Friends Plus Me is one of them.
Yes.
And to focus on Google Plus as a
Well, I think,
central
yeah, I
hub.
mean, I think that the secret, right, for John, the reason why you use Friends Plus Me is because you can actually schedule Google Plus,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly.
that's the reason why you're using it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But to
Well,
get
and
around
another
like,
thing, it's because you can actually integrate with your personal profile, which you can't do with Buffer App. Buffer App, you can only integrate with a business page. But with Friends Plus Me, the API is set to where you can actually interact with your personal profile.
okay, I'm going to reel everybody back in for a second because I want to know what's a good hashtag for John and aviation. And I think gazing skyward TV is kind of a no-brainer, but it's got to be a better one that involves the words aviation or airplane or something. So let's brainstorm for a minute and come up with a hashtag possibly. He doesn't have to use it, but I would like to get people thinking and John thinking about what would be a good hashtag for John.
Well, I think one thing to consider when you're coming up with the hashtags, you don't want to make it too long. You want to make it
Sure.
rememberable. You want to make it unique. So I like your idea, but for me to have to type all of that out every time I want to, every time I want to use a hashtag, it seems like we would want to come up with something a little more concise.
Yes,
So
and
I
let's
would
do it.
think maybe gazing skyward, or gazing skyward aviation, or uh, I don't know. There could be, or you could even use an acronym. You could even use initials, kind of like the SMMS that we use for our hashtag. So you might even consider using abbreviations within your hashtag, so that way it's unique, but it's short, so that somebody
Yeah.
who might want to use the hashtag to work on a post that, and they're not sitting there typing for 5 minutes typing out a
Yes.
long hashtag.
So, John, I
How
mean, I would think would be for you would be to make it short and sweet would be GS Media.
Mm, I
I
really don't
think
go by media.
Okay.
I got
Or
G,
it.
G,
GS Aviation.
I got it. Hashtag Freebirds. It's got to be memorable, right? It's got to be like something that people would think of and then think of John. So you might even not have it associated directly um, with aviation or airplanes, but it's got to be memorable. And birds, people will think of flight and so forth. So I'm just being creative on the side because that's what I did with our marketing
I have to
Smarties.
I have to interact, being that I am in Jacksonville, Florida, and Leonard Skinner, Freebird, the band, the
Yeah.
song, is
Can't
from
use
Jacksonville,
that.
Well,
Florida, and I'm
yeah.
almost
So
certain that that hashtag has been used.
I'm sure. I'm
But
sure I wasn't debating that for anything. I was just thinking,
yeah,
John,
I mean, you're just saying let's be creative, let's be unique. Yeah, I get
yeah.
it.
And then you'll even have a theme song automatically. So anyway, okay, back to the subject. We're in wrap-up mode. So Karen and John, how can we wrap this up in the last message? I posted 4 points that I derived from the discussion today
Hmm.
as a picture of basically John's hub of his outreach. So whether it's accurate or not, you let me know, and let's talk about how we can improve the message of what I'm showing there, and whether I'm accurate or not, and how do we make this better? Because I know it's just an outline, it's just a basic outline. You've got your central hub, which is Google Plus, and the attributes of along with it, the Friends Plus Me, and your structuring on how you do it. And then another factor of your outreach is you're being available in relevant associated platforms. So although you don't focus all of your
Hmm.
effort on anything else, you make yourself available, which corresponds to a thought that I have that you've selected chosen few. So you've selected your outreach people of people who like airplanes and pictures and so forth of planes and aviation and articles about aviation, and you're just going to be everywhere they turn. Well, we can't be everywhere, but we can be mostly everywhere by picking the right platforms that people are concerned with the subject matter that corresponds to what you do. And then the next point is that you respond to everything that you can. You're getting to the point where you can't respond to everything, so you have to pick and choose. You don't always respond to pluses and so forth, but if people comment, you usually try to comment back, if I'm correct. And then the last thing is you focus on the hashtag reinforcement, which you see where
Mhm.
your leverage is, and you add these things, the hashtags in the proper places, so they actually can double your engagement and increase and find out new connections to bring people to you and to engage in people who are influential so that they start to recognize you too. Okay, I'm done.
I think also part of his strategy too is that you said publish regular content. So he does publish often, frequently, and he has this kind of a set schedule of when he publishes, so that if people are expecting it, which his audience is now expecting at a certain time of the day, John's doing that. Plus, also the last that's not included is his strategy of following others as people are following him,
I would
businesses
add,
and businesses versus actual individuals. But I think he has a strategy of how he actually follows.
and I would add to what Karen said, that be known for being helpful and offering assistance, become a trusted authority on the products or services that you offer. I think when people learn that you know or you're an expert about a certain subject
Mhm.
matter, they may not have an immediate need for your product or service, but when they do have a need for your product or service, they'll remember that.
Yeah, because John is right now a thought leader, in my opinion, of what he's doing, just because of the extent of information. I mean, that's one of the reasons, John, as you mentioned, is how you have your recent gig at an aviation marketing publishing firm, right, is because of your extensive knowledge. I mean, that was one of the things that they found appealing and attractive about you, was because of your love of aviation history, plus your knowledge now of social media and marketing.
Well, and I think that ties into also, Google has a program, it's the Top Contributor program, where, people who are out there helping others regularly, they reward those people. And I think by the same token, even if you're not interested in
Mhm.
answering technical questions, even if you offer answers and assistance about your specific product or service or business, and get known as being that expert, as being that trusted authority, that you'll find that your business will grow just based on your reputation.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot going on with reputation management. And one of the things that I've learned recently is that you don't have to be the authority to become an authority. You basically can curate other people's content, which is exactly what you're doing, John. I mean, it's you're taking all this stuff that's flying around the internet, and you're saying relevant, relevant, relevant. You're
Mhm.
going to like this, and you're focusing everything in a central quadrant of information and of interaction, and the people are responding, and your engagement is high. You're building a following, and you're influencing people, and you're making their day a happier place because they get to enjoy the same things that you love too. So there's several things that people need to recognize about what you've done. You started out with your love of aviation, your love of flying, and airplanes and all that, and then you just got involved in social media, not doing everything but a few things right, and you focused on it and you stuck with it and you built a social media presence. And it just happened to be in a great place because Google Plus is a great place for you to start and do that. And then from there, you focused on engagement. You focused on engagement, the relationship, and building comments back and forth, and enjoying the people, and they're enjoying you, and that is enough. That's basically enough to get started. And you took it all the way to the point where your engagement surpasses that of the Smithsonian Institute, and I think that that is fabulous. So beyond that, you've got a job because of this effort. You got your own occupation by soliciting in the field that you're in, and by having your own background as your own like resume of what you do. So it's like a real story to be listened to here.
Yeah, so one last thing I want to add, because of just what John has done. And John, I think you want to share the good news. Last week we talked about a new community that Google Plus is creating for Google Plus collection creators. And John, you want to share your good news? Because to me, this it's just adding on to your brand, to your thought leadership, and that Google is valuing you as one of those that they want to include in their brand new community.
I just got the email yesterday that I was accepted in the Google Plus Create program, so I'm really excited to help contribute there. Ideas towards
Yay!
what could be done to improve Google Plus.
Yeah, because to me, I mean, that alone, with all the work that you've done in the past, almost 2 years now, that's just another feather onto your cap. That just shows how much your work is valued, and that as being a curator of great content, Google Plus is now seeing that and is honoring you with that honor. So I think that's great. So Roland, how do you want to wrap this up?
Well, Molly mentioned a really important thing that puts a little bit of a diversion to the concept because, of course, one of the first things I asked John about with his own outreach is, so John, when are you going to get involved in more video? And although you do get involved in some video and sharing some videos, you're not really excited about being in front of the camera and curating a show. But I personally feel that this is one of the key things that any business should be doing. But you are a good proof that you don't have to do it the way I think that you should do it or somebody else thinks. You've done it the way you do it, and it's been very effective. And it's how can I beat that? Even with video, how could I beat that? So we bring up the subject of video only because it's part of my tripod. It's part of Molly's. She's got a whole community based on uh, marketing online, leveraging YouTube, MOLLY and the whole bit. So yes, we're very much into video, and we do these shows every week, and we're pro video. But you are just a great example of what you've done without even focusing on video. And so I commend you on your accomplishments, and we really have to pay attention to what you're doing to learn from what your example is. And you've been a great benefit to the people watching the Smarties show. So thank you very much. Anyone else want to wrap it up? We're 6 minutes over time.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to.
I was going to say was just for John. I mean, you just answered it, Roland. It's what works for you.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't have to be video, right? It's for him. It's curated content, and everyone says you got to do video, but it's right now. It's not. John doesn't have the bandwidth to do it, and he is doing what he's doing, and it's working. Can you imagine what he'll be like if once he gets into video?
He'll become a video madman. No, I'm just kidding. So Molly, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations on your accomplishments. I know I've been following you. You've done a great job of marketing yourself. Congrats on the job. That's awesome. And, I think this serves as a good case study that you watching this hangout right now in Replay City, you can do this. You just have to put the effort into your campaign and make sure that you're out there every day engaging, posting, commenting, one-plussing, getting information out, answering questions, and just overall trying to build your online reputation about the products and services that you offer.
So thank you, Molly. I agree. I've been looking forward to this two-part series. I didn't know it was going to be a two-part series. I thought it was going to be a one-part series, but it turned into two parts because I think a lot of what's going on. John is one of the best examples that I could possibly show for doing what you love and doing it the way you want to do it. And he focused on it and made it work. And so if people come to me and say, yeah, it's just too big a job, my internet marketing is not going to happen, I can't do it, or there's no way, look at the examples around you and tell me that if you didn't get your guts together, you could not do something similar. Not exactly the way John does it, not exactly the way any of us do it, but your way. You can figure it out because it's an open market on creativity. So John, did you have any last words to impart upon the people who are watching and probably really enjoy this?
Just be persistent, consistent, and using a plugin like Friends Plus Me to help take the load off of distributing your content across the internet. to other social platforms that will allow you to engage more. And engagement is extremely important. And I enjoy being here for part 2.
Thank you very much, John. Well, I mean, basically by exemplifying what John's doing here, we've supported a lot of what the Marketing Smarties is all about. So I hope that it made sense to you. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the trip through some aeronautics. And we're going to say goodbye for now, and the plane lands now. Good day from Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. Bye-bye.